All right, St. Louis, I'd like to say good morning. Hope everyone's doing well on this beautiful Friday morning. I'm gonna go travel a little different today, St. Louis. I think we unfortunately have not been capable of going beyond the place in which we've been dwelling since the beginning of creation, and I'm gonna try to give you somewhat of an understanding as to why I believe this is the case. We must begin to think about who's leading the country, or shall I say, countries. Don't look at it from the perspective of an individual. Look at it from the perspective of an undeveloped mind. If we have 197 plus countries, everyone's subsequently trying to work together. You got some communist countries that oppose more moderate countries. But you can't look at it individually. You got to look at it collectively as one. Take into consideration that the laws of thermodynamics, which states that entropy shall increase, decay, disorder, it shall increase. There's no decrease, there's an increase. So everything will get old based upon the laws of thermodynamics, based upon the conservation of energy. And that was established. We can go back to Copernicus, Galileo. They were trying to figure out how to warp space and time, or how to make a ripple in the reality in which we currently dwell. In the 21st century, we're a little more technologically astute than they were back then. However, we're still following the same traditions as they brought forth. I think they did the best they could, but unfortunately, they didn't do enough because we're still where we were back then, other than the fact that we no longer think the earth is flat. At one point, they thought it was flat. At one point, they thought it was round. I don't think they know exactly what it is, because depending on the strength of the mind is going to determine your ability to process and understand what you need to understand, which is absolute zero minus friction and heat. In other words, we're talking about gravitational waves. I want you to think for a second. Is it possible that we're living in a hologram, a simulation? Is it possible? Is it possible that nothing that you see around you is physical? You're encoding it, subsequently it becomes form in the fabric of space and time, and as a result, you're dwelling in space and time, 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, which the arrow of time goes one way, and that's towards your death. However, your mind can't go beyond the direction in which it's headed, so subsequently it believes that that's the way it should be. Is it possible we establish false doctrine and false religion based upon our undeveloped mind? Many believe Jesus walked on water, Moses parted the Red Sea. Some don't believe that literally. Jesus walked on water, Moses parted the Red Sea, literally. Now, at one point, I didn't refute the fact that that's a parable, that's an allegory. We must begin to understand that there are no people as we consider to be people. You says, I can see Tom, Jack, Joe, and Sherry. No, you're encoding them. It's no different than a radio station. You're tuning into that signal. Subsequently, it becomes form. However, we're all bathing in different frequencies, but we can't necessarily understand the difference in the frequencies or the realities, because we can see and we can interact with one another, but you only interacting with them at the level of your mind. If you have a powerful mind, you can literally create precognition, and you could stop what they're going to do before they do it. However, if you are living in the laws of thermodynamics, entropy increases, chaos, and disorder, it's going to be cause and effect. Somebody gets shot, somebody go to the hospital, somebody go to jail, somebody do time, somebody get out, subsequently somebody end up dying, somebody go to the nursing home, somebody go to the graveyard. However, if we strengthen in mind, we can literally be able to magnify that external world billions of times smaller and see it at the micro, and subsequently stop time. Time is an illusion. It is an illusion. I'm convinced of that. Time literally can be stopped and can be rewind and can be fast forward. It's hard for you to perceive that that's the case because you can't go beyond 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. In other words, those that are PhDs, JDs, DDs, MDs are illiterate, but yet they think they're intelligent because they're living in a time or the generation of people that are all illiterate, because we hadn't finished the course. We hadn't finished. If the cavemen were here today, Neanderthals, many of you know who Neanderthals are. Those are the ones that didn't know about technology, didn't know about nuclear, didn't know about space, didn't know about spaceships, cars, trains, and planes. Those are the ones that were considered to be savages. But they still had babies. They still had families. They still were tribal. They still had a leader. They wouldn't have known about electricity, solar, nuclear power, but they thought they had the 411. So we know about solar, nuclear power. Is it possible there's something that we don't know? And subsequently, we think we are smart and geniuses? We're not geniuses because we got IQs of 200. What if the IQ branches out to 200 billion and we have 200 IQs? That means that we are dumb as a box of rocks. I'm not necessarily trying to belittle anyone. I'm just trying to get you to understand we must reach a higher level of knowledge, which is power. Einstein said E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass at the speed of light. How about power equal mass at the speed of light? Power, the abundance of power, the perfect sound at the speed of light. In other words, if our mind has the ability to be able to process information and data at light speed, we can literally see beyond the distorted view and see the truth. But yet, we don't see the truth. So subsequently, the arrow of time goes one way and we subsequently become sick. Bacterias fuel the land. Plagues fuel the land. Heart attacks, strokes, because we're all bathing in a gravitational pull that's suppressing us and keeping our neurons from firing properly. How do we break out of this matrix or this box? We break out because we must reach a higher level of intelligence, far beyond what we know, far beyond MIT, Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Nobel laureates, far beyond these guys, Elon Musk, Isaac Newton, etc., far beyond these guys. It's imperative that we reach this level, because if we don't, darkness will continue to rule the system. The system is ruled by darkness. You might not think so, but it is. When you're seeing babies getting killed, babies being sexually assaulted, etc., families being shot, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, cancer, plagues that are destroying, STDs, sexual transmitted diseases. I was looking at that the other day. I said, I wonder how many Americans possess that. They say over 100 and some million people at one time have STDs. And I'm thinking to myself, and some of them are so bad to where you can't cure them. So that within itself tells you that the laws of thermodynamics, entropy increases because we're bathing in the poison. We're bathing in it. But yet we want to go out and back that thing up and have sex with Tom, Dick, and Harry, unbeknownst that you're having sex with those bugs or those diseases that many people freely catch because they're so lustful and nasty. We must wake up in this season and understand it's much deeper than it appears. And if we don't, you will definitely pay for it. You will definitely unquestionably pay for it. And you're thinking, well, you got to get old someday. Listen to me. You're not getting old. You're dying. Your cells are mutating, making bad copies of themselves. Subsequently, you've become infected. And as a result of being infected, then you perish. But if you can reach a perfect mind, a perfect light, you can reverse the laws of thermodynamics and go back the other way and subsequently build the world in which it needs to be built. We wouldn't need presidents, kings, and queens bowing to people. Can you imagine how they bow to in North Korea and various other countries that are communists, play the music and people are bowing? This is sadistic. This is occultist. Each one of you have the ingredients within you to allow one of the brightest stars to shine. You have the ingredients, but you have to bake the cake. And as a result, you will start seeing the light get brighter and brighter, and subsequently your level of intellect would change, and you will be able to discern in ways you never thought you were capable of discerning. You would understand that religion as a whole has trapped humanity. And that's one of the reasons religion are fighting one another, because none of them know the truth. Not one of them know the truth. It's a fable. They turned it into fables and stories, and it seared your consciousness, and you are unfortunately perishing because your mind hadn't reached a level of knowledge to know that you were following deception. The letter kill and the spirit. You got to go deep. You got to go deep and be able to encode or fuse at that deeper level, and subsequently you literally stop time. So I just came up for a moment. I'm not going to stay long. I want all of you guys to have a wonderful, wonderful Friday today and have a wonderful weekend. But remember that death is not for us. In other words, you're thinking when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, you're supposed to, no, that's not the way it works. The reason you're dying at 70, 80, 90 years old is because of the laws of thermodynamics. Entropy increases, chaos, and disorder. Your cells are making bad copies. You're getting cancer, tumors, etc. That's why it says after so many years, 70 or 80, you subsequently are subject to get a cancer, 50%, 40%, subject to get some type of infirmity. But if your mind evolved, you can reverse that death. Because it's not age, it's basically cell mutation based upon your inability to find a perfect sound. Can you imagine if you had 500 people walking around in Carr Square Village in the park in St. Louis, and there was only one person that had a perfect sound, but the other 499 were part of the laws of thermodynamics, entropy increases. Now, out of the 499, they would in turn see that number, that one person that had that perfect sound, because his level of energy would go in the opposite direction than theirs, because their energy is breaking, it's expanding, it's shutting down, they're dying. His energy is contracting inward, where he's becoming a supernova. So they would feel him, but he wouldn't feel them, because he's not under the gravitational pull in which possessed them. That's what we must do. We must reverse the laws of thermodynamics, and as a result, diseases, sicknesses, pain, shame, murder, rape could not happen. We could do it, but we must not continue to follow the traditions of men. They are leading us astray, and they are unfortunately being tossed to and from by darkness. So I wanted to come on and say that to you all and think about it for a second. But more importantly, if you don't fight, you will perish. You must give it your all. I don't care if you're 50, 60, 70, 80. I don't care if you're 2, 3, 4. You must fight. Because even if you're 2, 60, 70, 80, if you are in the laws of thermodynamics, death is inevitable unless you strengthen your mind. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Seek ye first the kingdom, which is the mind, and as a result, you'll be able to understand that you are literally trapped inside a system that you could defeat. May God bless you all. Shout out to my grandbaby Noah. Granddaddy, love you, son. Shout out to Winton. Continue, Catherine, continue to grind. Dad, love you. Shout out to Zion, my grandson. Now, Gabe, Walter, and Danielle. Shout out to you and your family. Shout out to Georgia, Alabama. Shout out to Florida, of course. Shout out to Chi-Town. Tanya's in the house. Shout out to St. Louis. Shout out to the Bahamas, New York. And more importantly, remember that we must take that mountain. It's not going to be taken unless we take it. We can't wait on someone to take it for us. We must put in the work. God bless.